and grace for every day. Through your word, our hearts will see the Lord of hope. Let's go! Oh, 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 oh. We're alive in what you say. Let your truth light up the way. Let's go!
By 2026, the struggle with exhaustion has become a defining characteristic of our culture. We live under a constant pressure to curate a perfect persona and project an image of having our lives completely under control. Most modern attempts to solve this fatigue, like time optimization or extra sleep, leave us feeling just as depleted. These tools treat exhaustion as a scheduling error, rather than a deeper depletion of the soul. This feeling of a crushing, immovable weight is not a modern invention. It is the same sensation described throughout history when an individual attempts to move a massive burden without any assistance. Even those with deep faith are not immune. When our expectations of how God should act clash with the reality of our circumstances, the weight of that disappointment creates a unique kind of weariness. Our 2026 exhaustion suggests a struggle that goes deeper than our calendars. It points to the exhaustion of a life lived in isolation from any source of help. We see this specific struggle in the 1st century with John the Baptist. From a dark cell in the fortress of Machaerus, the man who once prepared the way for the Messiah began to experience profound doubt. The Greek text uses the word scandalizo to describe his state, meaning to be tripped up or stumble. John was struggling because God's timing did not match his own expectations of how a Messiah should act. John expected immediate judgment on corrupt leaders. Instead, he heard reports of Jesus healing the blind and eating with outcasts. The reality of Jesus' ministry was moving in a direction John didn't anticipate. Doubt, in this context, is the natural result of carrying the heavy weight of unmet expectations. It is what happens when we feel the burden of a world that isn't being fixed as quickly as we hoped. When Jesus addresses the crowds in Matthew 11, he is speaking to a people already crushed by a system of impossible spiritual demands. He uses the metaphor of a yoke. In that era, a yoke represented a rabbi's specific interpretation of the law. To take on a teacher's yoke was to submit to their specific way of living. This diagram shows the weight of the Pharisaic yoke. 613 rigid rules turned a relationship with God into an exhausting exercise in self-salvation. While religious leaders focused on accumulating rules, Jesus offered an alternative, moving directly toward the broken. This image shows a traditional wooden double yoke. Its physical design proves its primary function. It is built for 2 participants to share the labor of a single load. The religious leaders of the day had taken this tool of partnership and used it to isolate people under a burden they were never meant to pull alone. Jesus issued a warning to the cities of Chorazin and Bethsaida. They had witnessed his miracles, but remained indifferent, refusing to change their direction despite seeing God's work firsthand. He claimed that this spiritual indifference was more dangerous than the outward wickedness of ancient Sodom. Seeing the work of God and remaining unchanged creates a unique kind of spiritual hardening. Immediately after these warnings, Jesus gives the invitation found in Matthew 11:28. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." He then instructs the weary to take my yoke upon you and learn from me. Here, Jesus reveals himself as a king who is gentle and humble in heart. He does not offer a lighter set of rules. He offers himself as the partner who steps into the yoke beside us. The rest Jesus promises is anapasis. This is not a temporary break from activity, but an internal recreation that comes from knowing the ultimate work of salvation is already finished. This involves a transition away from self-reliance. Jesus does not ask us to abandon our responsibilities, but to unhook from the belief that we must carry the weight of our lives through our own strength alone. The load is redistributed. When we try to pull the weight of our lives by ourselves, we break. When we yoke up with Christ, this distribution changes how we experience modern pressures. The load remains, but the source of power has shifted. True rest is the peace of knowing that the heaviest burdens, our worth, our salvation, and our future are being handled by a partner who cannot be overwhelmed. Applying this means giving ourselves permission to bring our unanswered prayers and unmet expectations to Him, just as John the Baptist did from his prison cell. It involves making space to enjoy God's creation without the constant pressure to produce or optimize every moment. We are leaning on the character of a ruler who describes his own heart as lowly. He is approachable, kind, and patient with those who are exhausted. By stepping into the yoke with Christ, we can navigate the pressures of 2026 through unforced rhythms of grace, finally discovering the rest our souls were designed for.
This truth into your day. Let His light